Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is Hungry Dave here, and today we are bringing you a different kind of video. Today we are going to be talking about standard rotation and the sets that are leaving the standard format. Now, for those of you that don't know what rotation is, or if this is your first time visiting the channel, well, welcome, and welcome to the Pokemon community. So, rotation happens around the same time every August, usually before Worlds or a little bit after Worlds, and it basically freshens up the standard format because there's some sets that have been a part of it for 1.5 to 2 years now, and the Pokemon Company just decides, okay, people have enough playing with these cards, and we're just going to move along into greater and better things. So, everything that is rotating out is from Lost Thunder and behind in the Sun and Moon era. But that still means for expanded format, expanded is anything from black and white all the way up to our newest set in August, which will be Darkness Ablaze. So you can still use the cards that you had from this current standard format in expanded if there's a deck that you want to try out there. So as for right now, we are sticking to the Sun and Moon, Team Up, and Sword and Shield Darkness Ablaze format, which is definitely going to be an interesting format for sure, and there's going to be a bunch of new decks that come out of it. But first, let's look at some of the cards that we are going to be saying goodbye to, and some are going to be hard to say goodbye to. So, what are we losing? There's a lot that we're losing, but I wanted to highlight some of the key pieces to decks that we will be losing. So, we are going to be losing a bunch of helpful supporters. Cynthia, a staple draw supporter, where you are able to just shuffle your hand back into your deck, draw 6 new cards instead of discarding. And I mean, Marnie is kind of good in that way, but Marnie puts the cards on the bottom of your deck, and sometimes you want to still see some of those cards later in the game. Instead of having to reshuffle your deck afterwards and making it a whole process, Cynthia just got you your cards back into your deck in a random way and got you some new cards so you could hopefully make some more plays. And Volkner was great for Pikarom. Pikarom is one of the decks right now that is going to be being hit the heaviest with losing Volkner, Electro Power, and Zeraora, just to name a few helpful cards that it's losing. Volkner allowed Pikarom to get a Lightning Energy card. Now, that's not just any Lightning Energy card. That could have been a Speed Lightning Energy card out of your deck, attach it to Pikarom, again, drawing more cards. Drawing more cards is great. You're able to make more plays and win the game. And you were able to get an item card out, so maybe a Quick Ball or a Switch, whatever card that you needed to be able to advance your game state into your favor. Now, Judge is another card which shuffled the hand into the deck, both you and your opponent, and it was a great way that you could lock your opponent down early in the game, limiting their resources and having you see some fresh new cards. Now, Marnie kind of does that now, where putting the resources at the bottom of the deck, but again, it was all about shuffling into the deck instead of putting it at the bottom, which was good for you and could hurt your opponent. Instead, with Marnie now, it could potentially hurt you and your opponent. Elm's Lecture was a great card for those decks that revolved around little basic Pokemon, some baby Pokemon that had 60 HP or less, revealing them, putting them onto your bench, getting them into play as soon as possible, and really helping you out that way. Faba and Mars, both seen in some control decks or seen to counter control decks, where Faba allowed you to put a tool card or a special energy card or a stadium card into the Lost Zone. So you were able to get your opponent's Sky Pillar, Shrine of Punishment, or their Metal Fry Pan, their Recycle Energy for those control matchups out of the game state and swinging the match back into your favor. Usually Faba was a one-of when control was really big, just to try to counter it and be able to play the game, because control is all about controlling your opponent and making them so that they can't advance the game state. Mars, a card used in control where you would Surge double Mars to discard 2 cards from your opponent's hand and draw 4 cards essentially with that. Another great card that's going to be lost. Basically, control deck, I'm not saying that it's being hit the hardest, because it's not. It's just being totally obliterated from this rotation. So people aren't going to have to worry about control in this next format, unless the Pokemon Company does decide to come out with some cheeky new cards, which they always do have a way of doing so. Some more losses are some supporting Pokemon. All of you that have been in the game for a while remember Malamar, with the Psychic Recharge ability introduced in Forbidden Light, being able to put a Psychic Energy card from your discard pile onto one of your benched Pokemon, allowing you to accelerate energy, which was huge in this past format. It was basically a race to who could set up the fastest, and Malamar was one of those key Pokemon that could help. Yveltal GX we saw later in the format, along with Articuno GX later in the format, but Yveltal in the Goons list, in a lot of Goons lists, for that Doom Count GX attack, where if you got a Zigzagoon down on the bench, you evolved into a Galarian Obstagoon with a rare candy, you had the 4 damage on there to be able to Doom Count GX your opponent and possibly take 3 prize cards from that. And with your opponent, even if they return knockout and knock you out the next turn, it's a 3 prize knockout for a 2 prize knockout, netting you 1 prize card, putting you at an advantage in the game state. Articuno GX wasn't used when Celestial Storm first came out, and same thing with Jirachi Prism Star. And Articuno GX was used for its Cold Crush GX attack in control decks to be able to just completely wipe your opponent out of energy cards at the end of the game when you really needed it. If you counted the cards in your opponent's discard pile and were like, okay, there's 5 energy in the discard pile, my opponent may only play 8 or 10, but they need 3 energy to attack, I can just completely eliminate them from attacking me and win the game with the Cold Crush GX, making your opponent essentially have to concede to you, which was pretty great. Blacephalon GX, another supporting Pokemon in the Baby Blacephalon deck, and was even a deck itself when it first came out. I know that I tried my hand with Blacephalon GX. It was a great card. I loved the artwork on the full art and the non-full art card. It was just phenomenal. For 1 energy, Burst GX, discard 1 of your prize cards. If it's a energy card, attach it to one of your Pokemon. Just so great to be able to accelerate energy if you get it, and win the game with Burst GX, which the majority of the time was what it was used for if there was a tricky knockout situation that you had to do. Jirachi Prism Star, like I said, wasn't used until the later portion of the standard format, where it was used in combo Zacian with the Mr. Mime and a Rangaroo to put it into your prize cards, know where it is, and take an extra prize card, potentially taking 4 prize cards with 1 knockout, which is completely broken, completely insane, and we saw it do phenomenal at tournaments. Zeraora GX, again, I mentioned that in the beginning with Pikarom, basically allowing your electric type Pokemon with electric energy attached to it, well, any Pokemon with electric type energy attached to it, to be able to retreat for free. Just a free retreat option is always great. There were always 2 played in the Pikarom deck, so you would be able to hit your Zeraora GX and be able to get that free retreat going. We're losing some key items, so that Electro Power, like I said, which was huge for hitting the numbers that Pikarom needed to hit. Mysterious Treasure, which acted like a quick ball, but for Psychic and Dragon-type Pokemon, where you were able to get a basic Psychic or Dragon-type Pokemon, or a Stage 1 or 2 Psychic or Dragon-type Pokemon, which was huge for especially Dragapult VMAX, which we saw later in this format, where you could get a VMAX out of a Mysterious Treasure just for discarding a card, not having to play any sort of communication or anything like that, just being able to get a card for a card. Acrobike was a consistency card that's definitely going to be missed. Just being able to cycle through your deck with Acrobike, hitting the nuts and bolts that you need to be able to pull off some cool combos, or just to get energy onto the board. Acrobike was used just to help you out wherever you needed it. Sort of what people saw as a greedy card, but I saw as consistency. It's going to be rotating out this time around. Wait and See Hammer, used in some Pikarom decks for a little bit to be able to discard a water energy off of your opponent's ADP your first turn going second, which was phenomenal, because usually ADPs only play 2 water energy in their deck. So eliminating one, and if your opponent prizes the other one, they need to go a Zacian route to win the game. And that's really hard with against Pikarom when you need to hit for around 250 damage for a knockout, 260 damage for a knockout on a Pikarom with no Big Charm attached. Fiery Flint, used in Blacephalon decks, especially Baby Blacephalon, just to accelerate energy onto your board state, put it into your hand, and then hit those big knockouts. That consistency card is going to be gone this upcoming format, which is going to be tough for Baby Blacephalon, but I think because it still has Welder, still has Fire Crystal, and Giant Hearth, sure, it will have a hard time being able to hit what it needs to hit, but I don't think it will be that bad. Spell Tag, another item card that we had in this format that was used to just place some more damage onto the board when one of your Pokemon was knocked out. What else can be said about that? Always placing damage down is always great, especially if you're just trading knockouts for knockouts in one prize matchups. Very useful. Metal Fry Pan, this card has been talked about a lot along with the escape board, but we'll get to those. That one. Metal Fry Pan, 30 damage decreased when it's attached to your metal Pokemon, and it also makes it so they don't have any weakness. So those fire type matchups that would have been difficult before are no longer difficult. Blacephalon now needs to hit you for a whopping 5 energy if this is attached to a Zacian. Still, it works out with perfect math for 5 energy, but with the Metal Fry Pan eliminates the weakness, which was huge. A skateboard could get your Jirachi out of the active spot. Instead of now, we use Scoop Up Nets, and we will be seeing a lot more Scoop Up Nets being used if Jirachi is still the way to go with the Stellar Wish ability. We can't just retreat it with the escape board. Now we need to either let it up as a prize or scoop it up and put it back down on our bench, or just get rid of it. And then last but not least, Beast Ring, used a lot this format, being able to accelerate 2 energy cards when your opponent had 3 or 4 prize cards remaining to one of your Ultra Beast Pokemon, then you shuffle your deck. Just accelerating energy was huge to be the fastest one to power up your Pokemon and potentially win the game. Even some great stadium cards are being lost, so we are losing Thunder Mountain, absolutely detrimental for Pikarom. So it's going to be a lot harder for them to hit that turn 1 going second full blitz attack, where before you could just attach Tapu Koko Prism Star and switch. Now you need to have those 3 energy attached to Pikarom, and there's no way to get around that. Heat Factory, great in Blacephalon decks, any type of fire deck, just to be able to trade 1 fire energy for 3 cards, seeing more cards, making more plays, winning the game. Absolutely wonderful. Shrine of Punishment, another great card that's going to be lost to this rotation. Being able to put 1 damage counter on each Pokemon GX and EX, both your opponents, kind of fading out towards the end of this format with the introduction of Vs and VMAXs. So this card is kind of rotating out at the right time, but it could have seen another season with GXs and GX tag teams still being in the format. Sky Pillar, used a lot in control and stall decks, being able to stop your opponent from hitting the bench, acting as a bench barrier Mew, and preventing your opponent from placing damage counters onto the bench. Absolutely wonderful card. Will sorely be missed. And now Ultra Space, used in Blacephalon, Baby Blacephalon again, so it's losing 2 key stadium cards, that Ultra Space and the Heat Factory. Luckily, it will still have Giant Hearth, but these 2 cards that helped that deck are now going to be lost to the rotation. And then we are losing some fun archetypes. So Unknown Hand is going to be lost. We had a lot of fun later in the season with Unknown Hand, actually it being viable and being able to use in online tournaments. Giratina with Distortion Door, the Baby Tina deck, paired with the Malamar, was phenomenal. One of the best 1 prize decks out there that you could just hit your opponent for 130, doing 40 damage to yourself, but it was fine because you were trading knockouts. You were either hitting your opponent's Pokemon with 130 and then doing 40 to yourself, letting your opponent knock you out, no problem, and then hitting for another 130 to clean up that knockout. Going for 2-hit knockouts was the name of the game with this Pokemon, and it certainly made its mark on the format. Quagsire was huge for a little bit of time with Quagnag. For those of you that remember that, basically accelerating the water energy with Naganadel's ability charging up, and then using the washout ability to put it onto Quagsire and just do an insane amount of damage, picking up easy KOs and knockouts when Blacephalon GX was there. Ultra Necrozma GX was another deck that I know I faced when we were able to go to in-person tournaments earlier in the season, where you were able to do 20 damage plus for each psychic energy that you discard from this Pokemon does 80 more damage. Absolutely insane. So if you have 4 psychic energy attached to this Pokemon, you're able to hit for 260 damage. Absolutely, actually 340 damage. Absolutely insane. Sorry about my math there. And then we have a Rangaroo with resource management. Of course, we all know what a Rangaroo was used for. It was used in Control. Phenomenal deck that came out of this format, depending on who you ask, and will be missed and not missed, depending, again, on who you ask. Those who played against it will not be missing this card at all, but those Control players that love to play this deck are going to have a hard time in the next format not being able to play as much Control as they wanted to. And Macargo GX, kind of used in Welder Box and some Welder Mew decks to be able to counter Control decks for 1 Fire Energy Burning Magma GX, discarding the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. Basically, decking your opponent out before they can deck you out or make you concede. So another great card, but sadly being lost. So now we get into the new stuff, which is so exciting. So excited about this, the new meta, or is it? Is it the old meta just remastered? We still see Pikarom, we still see ADP, we still see Zacian, and we still see Dragapult VMAX in this format. Of course, Pikarom will be severely crippled with a lot of the cards that we are going to be losing, but don't count it out just yet, because players may still play it in your local tournaments. ADP, I think, will still have some time to shine in this next format, at least for a little bit. Zacian paired with ADP, just a phenomenal combo. Zacian on its own has started to become a thing as well, so don't be surprised if you see those kinds of decks circulating. Dragapult VMAX, absolutely, as we've seen, a great deck, just being able to do 130 damage, trying to hit the 2-hit knockouts on those big tag teams with Max Phantom, putting 5 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way you like. Being able to knock out a Jirachi with 2 Max Phantoms, great deck, able to do it easily. Centiskorch VMAX, a deck that hasn't been too talked about, but has seen some play in Japan and some success in Japan, being able to do 40 damage plus 40 times the amount of fire energy attached to this Pokemon. So, as you can see, that can get really out of control, possibly OHKOing some big Pokemon. Salamence VMAX, again, another one that we haven't heard a lot about, but spread damage has been circulating a lot in Japan, and being able to do 40 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon, I believe it's 3 of your opponent's Pokemon, and then with its V form doing 20 damage all around the board, you can see how that can get out of control with spread knockouts. Just completely board wiping is kind of a huge thing. I don't know if it can be paired with a Alolan Sandslash with its GX attack, but that might be something cool to look into. Is the possibility of that is completely board wiping with Alolan Sandslash GX and using Salamence and Salamence VMAX to be able to help you out there. Could be something to look forward to. And then, last but certainly not least, something that is coming out of the Darkness Ablaze set, I am really looking forward to playing this deck, is Eternatus VMAX. 340 HP, one of the biggest HPs that we've seen on a Pokemon yet, with the ability where you can have 8 Dark Bench Pokemon in play as long as this is your active, having 9 Dark-type Pokemon in play, hitting for 270 damage with Eternatus VMAX's attack for 30 times each Dark Pokemon in play. 2 Dark Energy, phenomenal attack, able to do it very easily, set up turn 2, just obliterate the board, hitting Dragapult VMAX for weakness, and hitting a lot of the heavy hitters like ADP. If you end up putting down a Galarian Zigzagoon, you can knock out an ADP in one turn, taking 3 prizes, which is absolutely insane. Easily knocking out Zacian V and Pikarom. Not even threats on the board. Then let's look at some possible rogue decks. Some possible rogue decks that can come out of this format are Blacephalon, Baby Blacephalon, where we have seen it be a meta deck in the past, but because it is being crippled by a lot of its key parts being taken out, as we saw with Ultra Space being taken out, Heat Factory being taken out, and Fiery Flint, it's going to be severely crippled and may not be as strong as a deck as it was before, so you may still see some players trying to pull it off at your local tournaments, but I don't see it being a big deck in this next format. Stonejourner VMAX, on the other hand, I have been hyping this deck up a lot with a bunch of my friends, and we see it has 330 HP, which is 10 less HP than Eternatus VMAX. Still a big boy out here, being able to hit for 200 damage, which is hitting for weakness on Eternatus VMAX, which is notable, and hitting for weakness on Pikarom. So 2 big players that have been very much used in Japan and in America. I can see Eternatus VMAX being big in America. Being able to just OHKO it, completely broken, absolutely a great deck. And even with Stonejourner V being able to take those big knockouts as well, easily knocking out Pikarom, even with a big charm. And Eternatus VMAX having a little bit more trouble, but with the right pieces together, you are able to hit for exact numbers, because its second attack is 150 damage for 3 fighting energy, and with the Vitality Band and the Martial Arts Dojo in play, you're hitting for 170 plus weakness, so that is exact math for 340 damage. Obviously, Big Charm on Eternatus VMAX I don't think will be used because the HP alone is astounding. Rillaboom VMAX, people have been playing this in our current standard format as a rogue deck. This deck is kind of being crippled because it is losing Netball, but we are gaining Turf Field Stadium from the Rebel Clash release, which definitely helps this deck out. And for max beating, doing 280 damage is always great, knocking out an ADP. And if we see that as a threat in this format, you can definitely count on Rillaboom VMAX out here just to try to counter those ADP matchups. Then we have a return of the original Glass Cannon deck, basically a Night March deck out here. You know the name of the game, for 2 colorless energy doing 20 damage times the amount of Pokemon with the Mad Party ability in the discard pile. Absolutely insane. Great deck. I can definitely count on this Pokemon being used with our twin energy that we have in our format, Vitality Band, and other support to be able to knock out your opponents easily with this astounding Glass Cannon. Now, this whole video has been informative for you guys, but I can't stress this enough. If you are getting into the Pokemon TCG, these are the cards that you want to look out for and try to get. Obviously, not the full arts, because those are more expensive and flashy cards, and if you're just starting out, you don't need to get those. Just dip your toes in. You can get the Professor's Research, the Marnies, the Boss's Orders, and the Dedenne GX, all from the Trainer's Toolkit, which I have down below here on this screen. You get 2 of each, which is phenomenal. So with 2 Trainer's Toolkits, which would end up being $40 if you buy 2 of them, around $20 or $25 if you only buy 1, you end up getting all those great staple cards for this next format. All will be standard legal, and it really gets your foot in the door of what the Pokemon TCG is. There's a little rule book in there. You get a bunch of card sleeves, damage counters, special condition counters, just an all-around great product. I'm not sponsored by the Pokemon Company in any means, but this is a great product that I have purchased personally and find it to be very helpful for buffing up your decks. Crobat V, if you can get your hands on a couple of those, probably a playset of those would be good if you're trying to play Eternatus VMAX. This acts as a shaman from Roaring Skies, basically the setup shaman, but you can only play one of these in your turn. So Another great card, being able to draw up until you have 6 cards in your hand. Awesome. Then Jirachi with the Stellar Wish ability, a card that is no stranger to anyone. Once during your turn before your attack, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, you may look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a trainer card you find there and put it into your hand, then shuffle the other cards back into your deck. And then this Pokemon is asleep. Basically, just trying to get those key pieces out of your deck that you need. Cynthia and Caitlin I can also see as a potential new draw supporter, because you're able to draw 3 cards, put a supporter from your discard pile back into your hand. So you not only have a supporter for this turn, but you also have one for next turn. Sadly, you cannot chain Cynthia and Caitlin's, but you're able to draw 3 cards and get some supporters out of it. So that's all for now. Thanks everybody for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. For more videos like this, leave a comment down below. I want to appeal to you guys, so leave a comment of what you want to see next, and I will definitely try to do my best to adhere to that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you on the next one.